Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. First, I'd like to welcome everybody. Thank you all for coming to today's March 2nd, 2023 Columbia Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. This is my first meeting serving as chair, so please be patient with me. I would like to, at this time, introduce other members of the board. I'm going to start to our right, Celia McIntosh. Beside her, Catherine Finner. John Ginyard to my immediate right. To my immediate left, we have Sherrard Duval, and then Davis Whittle next to him. At this time, I'd like to also introduce other members of staff that assist the board. Thank y'all. We have Hope Hasty, Zoning Administrator, Erica Hyen, Deputy Zoning Administrator, and Sky Robinson Barnes, Land Use Coordinator. The board is charged with hearing all applications for special exceptions, variances, and administrative appeals. All testimony is recorded for the record, and anyone wishing to speak will need to be sworn in and come to the podium to speak. No testimony may be taken from the floor. When you come to the podium, state your name and please speak clearly into the microphone because this meeting is being recorded. Applicants with cases before the board are allotted a presentation time of 10 minutes. This time also includes all persons presenting information on behalf of the applicant. This time limit does not include any questions asked by the board or staff regarding the case. Any member of the public may address the board in the intervals of 3 minutes or 5 minutes if by a spokesperson for an established body or group of 3 or more. The applicant then has 5 minutes for rebuttal. The board reserves the right to amend these limits on a case-by-case basis. All right. Those who plan to speak must be sworn. If you are here as an applicant or here to speak in any case, please stand at this time and raise your right hand. Okay, very well. Do you affirm or attest that the testimony you will give today is the truth and nothing but the truth? All right, thank you. At this time, I'll turn the meeting over to Ms. Hasty.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So before we get started with the consent agenda, I just want to make a quick announcement that the 1901 Rosewood case was withdrawn, and that was kind of early on, so you probably aren't aware of that, but just if anyone's here for 1901 Rosewood, that case has been withdrawn. Okay. Moving through the consent agenda, we've got the approval of minutes from February 2nd, 2023. Case 2023-0005V, 1003 Richland Street. It's a variance request for the minimum fence height standard. Second case on the consent agenda is 2023-0006 SE. It's next to 7401 Richard Street, and it's a special exception request to permit an alternative parking surface. And the final case on the consent agenda is case 2023-0007V, 4720 Renwood Lane. It's a variance request to the required side yard setback standard. And that concludes the items on the consent agenda. Would any members of the board like to remove a case from the consent agenda?
All right. Seeing none, at this time, I just want to let everybody know we're about to review the or vote on the consent agenda. So if anybody's here for one of those cases, now's the time to speak or forever hold your peace. Okay. Seeing none. I ask for a motion to approve the minutes and consent agenda, please. Thank you. Do we have a second? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor state aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion approved.
All right, moving on to the regular agenda. We've got case 2023-0003 SE. It's 408 and 436 Blossom Street, 519 Hugie Street, and 401 Wheat Street. And it's a special exception request to exceed the maximum density of bedrooms per acre for a private dormitory. And the applicant is here and will be presenting the request today.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board. I'm Leighton Lord with Nexon Pruitt. I live at 2416 Terrace Way in Columbia. As you all will remember, this matter was deferred last month for the sole reason to better investigate and understand the traffic that would be impacted. The Granby and Olympia neighborhood thought that this project would violate number 3 of the 13 requirements for a special exception, in that it would have a substantial adverse impact on traffic. Since that time, we have accelerated our traffic impact analysis, and Liz Carpenter, our traffic consultant, is here today, and she's completed that study. The SC Department of Transportation has reviewed that study, and they've accepted that study as valid. We've also had meetings with the neighborhood and a very large meeting at the Department of Transportation that involved, I think, half the city staff and half the Department of Transportation and us in the neighborhood in the middle. And we heard the neighborhood's concerns, and we also expressed what we would be able to do. The traffic impact analysis conducted by Ms. Carpenter showed that this project would have less traffic impact than the existing uses, which is what we thought. There's a gas station there, there's a gym. There are currently 7 curb cuts on Blossom and Assembly. This project would bring that down to 2 or 3, so there'd be a lot less traffic coming off of those 2 areas. And gas stations have a lot of traffic all day long. Student housing has intermittent traffic and not as much. Nearby student housing was studied, and it was concluded that our project would have less of a traffic impact than the existing uses, and come nowhere close to being a substantial adverse impact on traffic. So we feel like we've more than met that requirement of the special exceptions. We've also talked to area neighbors, and as you all can see from your record, we've gotten a great deal of support for this project. The Vista Property Owners Association has written a letter of support for it. They say that this is what the Innovista Overlay District needs. 2 or 3 area property owners have also given letters of support for this project, again confirming that this is the type of project at the gateway to Columbia that's really going to set off this area of the neighborhood. There are some requirements in the traffic impact analysis. I'm not sure if we have those up. We also have a very pretty picture of the project. This is right here.
Leighton, could you move the microphone closer to your desk?
I was yelling loud. This is actually a...
Is it on?
Is it on? How do I turn it on? Yeah, it's on. Okay. I'll speak very close to it. This is a better picture that was just updated of what the project's going to look like on the corner of Hugie and Blossom. What we also wanted to show you was what the traffic impact analysis is recommending for this project, which I think is the next slide. So they do recommend some traffic modifications, extension of a concrete median along Hugie, reconstructing of existing driveways along Blossom. We're taking out the curb cuts. We're going to make the sidewalk more pedestrian friendly. Also, some pavement markings to make sure cars give pedestrians enough room there. In addition, and this is an addition because our traffic impact analysis does not call for signalization anywhere for this project. But the neighborhood, and I'm going to hear that in a minute, would very much like signalization in a lot of places. And Subtext is willing to fund signalization at Catawba and Hugie, or another intersection if they can get it approved, in order to be a good neighbor to the Granby and Olympia neighborhood. And this statement, which I'll try to read being close to the mic as I can, is Subtext Acquisitions agrees that a condition to obtaining a building permit for the Verve project on the corner of Blossom and Hugie streets, they will place funds in escrow for the purpose of installing a traffic signal at the intersection of Catawba and Hugie, or Wheat and Hugie, or Blossom and Williams, depending on which intersection signalization is approved by the necessary entities first, in the city of Columbia in an amount of $150,000. That was the estimate that we were given from SCDOT and from Davis and Floyd that this would cost. So I want to be very clear, this is not a requirement of our traffic impact analysis, but we are doing this in order to help the neighbors down the street and help their traffic. Traffic is bad for the Granby Olympic neighborhood. We don't think we cause it, or we'll cause it to be worse, but we're willing to help the neighbors as much as we can. So Bethany Rooney from Subtext is here. If you all have any more questions for the developer, Liz Carpenter is here on traffic. If you have any more questions for her, I'll just conclude by saying we believe this project will be a wonderful gateway to the Innovista and to the city of Columbia. This intersection is currently an old gas station. It's not very attractive. We're going to take the curb cuts out, make it a very attractive corner, lower the traffic volume around there, and make it a real showcase for Columbia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Catherine?
I have one question. When is the Blossom Street Bridge project supposed to be finished? Do you know?
Liz may know.
Okay, I thought so.
Estimated
I
before
thought so.
2026. Thank you.
Hope.
For the record, I'm going to recuse myself from this.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Noted.
Thanks, John. And Catherine, that's the Blossom Street Bridge, replacing that,
Right,
doing the work.
they're
for that.
replacing, yeah, they're replacing it alongside Palmetto Compress Warehouse, but they're saying it's going to be done by that time.
It will. It's supposed to start, I think, later this year. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. Good, good.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Do we have anyone from the public that wishes to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Bob Guild with Granby Neighborhood and the Mill District Alliance. I live at 314 Palm Mall Street in the Granby Mill Village neighborhood. First, I just want to say that we very much appreciate the Verb developers' cooperative spirit and working with us in the short period we had since we were before you last month. We did have that large meeting that Leighton referred to with DOT, city officials, and Representative Seth Rose, and we appreciate all of their cooperation. A couple of points. First, we reiterate our fundamental position, which is that this project will indeed cause substantial adverse impacts to vehicular traffic, pedestrian traffic. The traffic study that is alluded to simply did not look at the traffic impacts that are pertinent to my neighborhood, which have nothing to do with the existence of curb cuts or a gas station on Blossom Street. They have to do with whether or not the Granby neighborhood could even get onto Blossom Street. The problem is the three limited intersections to egress the neighborhood will undoubtedly be adversely affected by adding 960 additional students, 500-car garage, all their friends into the neighborhood. The traffic study simply did not look at those impacts to us. They did not measure the peak traffic generated by a student dorm at that location. They simply look rush hour traffic morning and evening. But at the same time, they make the point that students don't travel at those times. They travel different times, which is supposed to make us feel good. The only evidence you have in this record is the traffic study that was done for Park Place, which is in the record from your previous meeting. Back when a traffic study was done for the existing now Park Place private dorm at the corner of UG and Blossom, just the opposite corner from this project, they predicted that the level of service at the intersection that I just used today to get out, Wheat and UG, would be reduced to the lowest level, that is a level of service F, from a level of service D. Well, we've had years of experience, and it is the worst level of service. You take your life in your hands going out of that intersection, crossing multiple lanes of speeding traffic coming south on UG Street to get to a turn lane to go into town or to straight lane to go north. So adding another slug of cars will undoubtedly hurt us. Now, the traffic study folks here, Ms. Carpenter did a really conscientious job of thinking about other alternative mitigation measures. And indeed, one of those measures was barring left turns at Williams and Blossom. That is across from that Millennium Buffet, if you know where that is, near the Blossom Street Bridge. Very dangerous intersection to make a left turn, particularly at rush hour. But if you bar rush hour left turns there, you force traffic to Catawba Street, and that's why we came up with this idea of a light there, a signal. And DOT, seemed to be mulling over that idea. But here's the deal, and I'm going to offer you a series of messages that the developer has shared with me, and I want to share with you for the record. And these are messages that basically I saw it, I guess, yesterday, but essentially reflect the meetings and discussions we had. Essentially, what they say is that DOT might allow a signal at one of these three intersections, but they hedge all over the place with whether or not traffic volumes justify a signal, whether there's enough right-of-way, whether or not the city would approve it, whether or not the railroad would approve it close to the railroad tracks. And here's our fundamental point. We support this project, but it needs to be conditioned on a mandatory requirement to have a signal at one of those three intersections. Not simply a promise that we'll think about it, try, and offer resources, in their case, very generous, $150,000. It's an $85 million project, so this is not a lot of money. But if any one of those other actors say no or obstruct getting a signal, there will be no signal. So here's the bottom line. We support granting the special exception only with a mandatory condition that a signal be installed at one of those three intersections before there's occupancy in the proposed Verve project. And here's the way I read it now. I think that your ordinance requires two things. First, you decide if there is a substantial adverse impact to traffic, and I think the only evidence you have is there will be. Level of service F at that intersection. Then the alternative is you got to mitigate or eliminate that adverse impact before you can have a special exception. It doesn't come after the special exception, it comes before, because it is a legal precondition to granting the special exception to have no substantial adverse impact. So what I've said to my friend and colleague Leighton Lord and his clients is, I support your project, my neighborhood supports getting a special exception, but you just got to agree that we got to get the signal, not just say we'll think about it, talk about it, hope we can get one, and pay for it if all of the stars align. If the stars don't align, we're just, really facing that substantial adverse traffic impact that's going to take lives. I mean, when you dodge across multiple lanes of traffic to simply get into downtown, as we now have to do, I've been in one wreck already. I think I mentioned that last time. Someone totaled my car trying to make a left turn into my neighborhood. I don't want that to happen to me, but I also don't want it to happen to the 960 college kids that are going to be in this dorm when they run across the intersection or drive out to go to classes or party or what have you. So I think all parties deserve a mandatory mitigation measure here, which is a traffic signal on one of those three intersections. And the paper I just handed to staff here reflects an email chain that includes the DOT person essentially saying, we can't require a signal, we don't require a signal, that if there's a demonstration of sufficient volume, we could support it. If there's an adequate right-of-way, if DOT, the city, and the railroad approve it. There are all these uncertainties, even with the best effort over the last month, and I would urge you to grant the condition that we've described. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I appreciate very much your time.
Board have any questions for Mr. John? Thank you, Mr. Ross.
Thank you.
Yep. Hope, can you just go back one slide on this? I just want to see, or maybe a second, what are the recommendations? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, please.
Thank you. I just want to have a quick rebuttal to Bob.
Yeah.
First, I don't think Bob's characterization of the requirements for special exception are accurate. Number 3 says the proposed special exception will not have a substantial adverse effect on vehicular or pedestrian safety. we're looking at this project, not the existing conditions or what's going on in other projects. This is our project going to do that? Not that there's bad traffic in Columbia. And I think that's the analysis. First, I disagree. I think the Park Place traffic impact analysis is not really relevant. It's a different project. It's old. The relevant traffic impact analysis is the current one that was done for this project, and that's the one that SCDOT accepted. I can't tell you what traffic's all about, but I'll believe Liz and I'll believe SCDOT. And finally, SCDOT hedges just like a lot of governmental entities hedge. But the one thing they said very clearly is we will not pay for it. We do not have the money to pay for it. So that's the first hurdle for getting Bob's Light, and we said we would pay for it. So we can't control SCDOT, we can't control the City of Columbia, we can't control Norfolk Southern, but we took away the first hurdle to a light, which is paying for it. And if we had accepted Bob's condition that every project had to be contingent on something that wasn't required by the facts, but was contingent on forces that you had no control on, nobody could do a project. Because we can't control SCDOT. We can try our best, we can fund it, we can push it, which we have done, but we can't control them. And we're willing to do everything we can to help with that light, but if it's contingent on that, no project can happen because no one can move forward. So, thank you.
Thank you. I guess that concludes presentation rebuttals. So I just want to thank y'all. I mean, Mr. Lord, developer, I want to thank you. I mean, y'all have made a tremendous effort to address some of the concerns. I think the big concern, we'll move into board discussion here real quick, and I think the big concern is item number 3 on the special exception. The proposed will not have a substantial adverse impact on vehicular or pedestrian safety. We talked about this case at length last meeting. And I put a lot of weight on what DOT says. I mean, they're the experts, they're the hired engineers, they're the public authority. And I read through that traffic study last night and read through the email response from DOT, and I put a lot of weight on that. And when they say, looking for it, here it is, from Ms. Campbell, SCDOT has reviewed the draft impact analysis for the Verve Student Housing Development. As stated in the analysis, it is expected that the proposed land use will generate less peak hour traffic than the current land uses on the site. The development will, however, slightly increase traffic on some of the network roadways, primarily Williams and Wheat Streets. The primary driver of delays along these roadways and intersections is existing traffic with minimal increase in delays attributable to the development itself. We concur with the recommendations of the traffic analysis, which I think was important because it shows that the traffic analysis was done with some merit and not just willy-nilly. You know, they're agreeing with it and would require the following mitigations. So we talked about the, and one question we didn't talk about was the recommendations that DOT made. Mr. Lord, will you please come back up here? Well, let me just ask you one question. And has the board, did y'all get a chance to review this?
Oh, yeah. I did.
So there were some other recommendations, the extension of the concrete median, and they said, and they would require the following mitigations. So extension of the concrete median along UG to create a continuous median from Blossom Street to Wheat Street, reconstruction of all existing driveways along Blossom and UG Street to create continuous sidewalk and remove existing curb cuts, potential designation of a dedicated northbound left turn lane from UG onto Wheat Street using existing roadway, installation of pavement markings along the western leg of Wheat Street to create desired laneage as well as pedestrian crosswalk, which would help with the pedestrian safety, installation of pavement markings on the southern leg of William Street to create desired laneage as well as a pedestrian crosswalk. These improvements would meet the SCDOT requirements related to traffic mitigations for the proposed development. As always, the development will have to comply with all SCDOT standards and requirements related to driveway construction, widths, drainage, et cetera. So I guess my question to you before we officially move into board discussion, is the developer prepared to do those mitigations that DOT is going to require?
Yes.
Okay.
All of them.
Okay, thank you. hold on one sec. Mr. Giles, Mr. Giles, please, we need to come to the podium if you want to speak, please. I'm sorry. And Hope.
Yeah, I'll just state for the record that that slide and I think it was the previous slide, were provided by the applicant and requested that staff include those in the presentation today.
Okay.
I'm just going to say to you that I met your deadline yesterday of submitting written material, and I had several phone calls with Leighton Lord and shared with him the letter I was going to submit. I wanted him to know exactly what our position is, because we've had basically a transparent and cooperative relationship. But this is sandbagging now. I did not receive the traffic study. I did not receive anything from DOT expressing their
Mr.
view on that
Giles,
traffic study.
understood. Hope, what's the proper procedure for letting the public know about this stuff, about DOT?
Just a general.
Like, what do
member
we
of the
do?
public.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, beyond the typical posting and, legal advertisement and everything, there's no,
I guess, Mr. Giles, I mean, I wanted to display to you that it appears that they're doing everything they can. They're meeting DOT requirements. The DOT, and I put faith in DOT. I'm not the DOT. You're not the DOT. So they're the governing body, and I don't know what else somebody can do other than meet their requirements. That's why I wanted to read it for the record, so.
I'm just saying that as a matter of fundamental due process, I'm entitled to see and respond as a party that's being injured by what is being asked for by this applicant. I'm entitled to disclosure of the evidence that I have to meet their application, and I've responded to everything that was made available to me, and I submitted evidence last month that I believe makes my point. Now, you may disagree, conclude otherwise, and Verve certainly is entitled to disagree, but they're not entitled to sandbag the record or providing evidence that a community that's adversely impacted does not have an opportunity to review. And frankly, I've had 2 conversations with this lawyer this afternoon. He never mentioned that he had any of this material while I've shared everything with him that we intended to submit. So I just want to say that I think the process is flawed, and it really does violate due process principles in my opinion.
Question, query, if I could.
Yeah, Catherine, please.
Was the DOT, you guys had a meeting, right?
Yeah.
And DOT and the neighborhood and you all were,
Traffic consultants.
yeah, we're all there at that meeting. Was that traffic study not available at that time?
I don't know.
It was?
Yeah, and Bob, I'll tell you, everything you've asked for, I've sent you. I said that SCDOT gave an email saying they'd kind of do a light. We sent it right to you. Everything you've asked me for, I've sent you. But this is, I didn't know I had the obligation to give you
Hey,
every single thing.
Mr. Lord, please, we need to refrain from, talking to each other.
I didn't know I had an obligation to give the public everything that my client had, but everything that's been asked for, we've handed over.
Sure. Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Giles, please, you've had your chance, please. Just please sit down, or come to the podium, please, if you want to speak one more time.
His objection is noted.
Mr. Giles, your objection is noted. Your objection is noted. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. All right. I was trying to lead that into board discussion, so I'm going to turn it over. Who else wants to have a comment? Catherine or Celia? Yes, we're officially in board discussion. Go ahead. Celia, please.
I think the first thing to think about is to go back to the very beginning and sort of refocus on what this special exception actually is for. It is not that it is either that there can or cannot be a student housing development. Like, that's okay, like at the base level.
right.
It's that we're looking, the special exception is for the density. And so it's the number, you know, is that additional density going to create more of an issue? You know, are we exacerbating the problem? And so I think from that standpoint, I think a lot of what we're hearing discussion about is the pure existence. And so from my standpoint, it's feeling like that extra density, which at first blush feels like it would be a lot, but in reality, I don't think you're creating an exponential problem above what the base existence would be. So that's
Yeah.
my sort of.
Catherine?
I think that we've certainly seen that, but as you pointed out too, the professionals have suggested that the impact is actually going to be less than the current impact, and I think that we're looking, as Celia points out, we're looking at the incremental change, and that in fact the increment is a decrement. It's a decrease in impact overall. I certainly would love to see, as someone who uses Granby Park, I'd sure love to see a signal there at Catawba and that, because I think that'd be a wonderful idea, and I think it'd be great if they could put, you know, fencing down or something so that people aren't turning willy-nilly and all like that. But I think that the developer has certainly gone above and beyond in terms of being willing to fund, you know, and cooperate and doing everything they can to make it happen. And the impact appears that it's going to be reduced.
Gerard?
It's only the special exceptions. That's our obligation. Although I agree with what the gentleman is talking about that represents the neighborhood association, creating a binding agreement between the neighborhood and the developers is just not something that we have the latitude to do. As much as we may feel we do. I think it's our obligation to do the duty that the city has entrusted us to, and that's to look at whether or not the special exception, in this case for density, they've done the traffic study for density. It is my hope that the developers and the community can be on the same page as far as what their needs are, because I don't see the point of coming into a community and telling it what it needs when the community feels some of the type of way. But this particular board, our duties only maintain special exception permissions, and for what the developers have done as far as our letter is concerned has been covered. I don't know how much more our board can do to help the neighborhood's behalf. That's my 2 cents.
Davis?
I feel that the developers gone above and beyond to do what is required of them, at least from what we saw last month. I think by saying that they need to do more stuff that's out of their control, it sends the wrong message and makes it just a little too challenging to get stuff done in Columbia.
I think all that being said, I think we do need to find a way to sort of capture some of the commitments, the mitigation and the voluntary commitments, because I think that makes a huge, you know, safety impact even for the residents, you know, to get across the street.
You're talking about the SCDOT required
Would you like me to make a
mitigations that they have here?
Yeah. Yeah, and I was reading that because there were some other criteria, the DOT, some other things that they had required mitigations that hadn't been mentioned yet. So I wanted to put those on the record to try to make the neighborhood and Mr. Bob feel better about the DOT requirements. They just haven't been mentioned yet. So I tend to agree with you guys.
Do you want a motion?
Please, Catherine, I will certainly entertain a motion.
I move that we approve, subject to staff comments and also the inclusion of the required mitigations on the slide here, incorporated by reference. And that's it. I guess that's my motion.
Do we have a motion? Do we have what's that, Celia?
Well, and the voluntary commitment, too. I'm sorry, the required mitigations and the voluntary commitment, I'm referring to the entire, incorporating by reference, this entire screen.
Yeah, I think you just have to restate it.
Want me to restate it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Catherine, please.
I move that we approve, subject to staff comments and the SCDOT required mitigations and subtext acquisitions LLC voluntary commitments contained on the slide that is in front of me at this point, which shall be hereby incorporated by reference.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's approved. Thank you. All right. Second case is case number 2023-004-SE. Is for the 3300 block of North Main Street at Sunset Drive. Is the applicant here? All right, please come to the podium. How are y'all doing? Please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Catherine Lloyd.
Can you get, closer to the mic? It's really hard to hear.
Catherine Lloyd. Catherine Lloyd.
My name is Charles White.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are here to request a special exception to permit a C-store at North Main in Sunset here. Thank you for all of your time today, and we look forward to discussing this further with everyone. Over the last month, we have met with the North Columbia Business Association and the Hyatt Park Keenan Paris Neighborhood Association to help answer some of their questions or concerns beforehand. Hopefully, I can touch on some of those points we previously discussed with these groups for any of the public that may have similar views today. First, there are quite a few Circle K stores in the Columbia area, and I believe it's important to note the variation in our offering across the board. The older stores we have tend to be smaller buildings and tighter lots. With every new store we build moving forward, it includes our latest fast food fresh program, a large convenient parking lot, and an enhanced lighting facade for safety. We acknowledge there is a lack of an immediate grocery offering in the area, and we intend to provide a more expansive food program to that community to fill some of that void. This includes breakfast and lunch items, salads, pizzas, whole or slices, snacks including refrigerated items such as yogurt, cheese and protein boxes, fruit, and more. We have put together a slide of some of these newer stores we have built in the Columbia MSA for reference. To my last point, safety is important to you all, and it is absolutely important for us as well when it involves our community, our customers, and our employees. As part of the special exception process, we have committed to the Crime Prevention and Awareness Program, allowing for a police officer to periodically monitor the site and the Neighborhood Communication Program, meaning Circle K would provide contact information for our adjacent neighbors should there be any concerns. Our well-lit store and building intend to prevent any unwarranted activity at night, but not so much so that it would impact any of our neighboring businesses. Safety is a priority for us, and we understand the desire for everyone to feel that as well. I'll keep it short and sweet to be respectful of everyone's time here. My position is specializes in real estate, so if there are some operational questions that I cannot answer, I am happy to get to the appropriate person who is local here in Columbia. I'm a local as well, and I live about 10 minutes away from this site. Thank you again. I'll let Charlie add anything if.
All right, well, thank you for your testimony. Just because this is a new case, I'd like to go through the special exception checklist for you on, I don't know the page number, but it's in your packet. So we have a checklist that we judge the special exception by, the criteria, and I'm just going to go, and I don't want to make you repeat yourself, but if you have those handy, I would like to go down them just for the record. So do you mind just starting with number one and just kind of going down for the record?
Yes, requirement number one, the proposed special exception complies with all applicable zoning district-specific standards in Article 3 zoning districts. Number two, the proposed special exception complies with all applicable use-specific
And will you
standards.
just, read your response too? Yeah, the comment and the response, yeah, please. Thank you.
Our response is the proposed fuel station development complies with all applicable zoning district standards. Number two, the proposed special exception complies with all applicable use-specific standards in Article 4 use regulations, and our response is that our proposed fuel station development does comply with all these regulation standards for our use. Now, the third proposed special exception will not have a substantial adverse impact on vehicular traffic or vehicular and pedestrian activity, and our response is the proposed fuel station will not adversely impact vehicle and pedestrian activity. Required traffic studies will be completed, and all applicable roadway improvements will be completed as part of this project. Number four, adequate provisions are made for parking and for loading and unloading, and our response is that ample space on our development will be provided for all on-site parking and loading needed. The proposed special exception will not have a substantial adverse impact on adjoining properties in terms of environmental factors such as noise, light, glare, vibration, fumes, odors, obstruction of air or light, and litter. Our response is this development will complete photometric plans to comply with this requirement and will not adversely impact all properties through participation with convenience store condition programs. Number six, the special exception will not have a substantial adverse impact on the aesthetic character of the area, to include review of the orientation and spacing of the buildings. And our response is the proposed fuel station development will spend ample time and effort to confirm the site layout and building blend with the community and do not adversely impact the aesthetic of the area. Number seven, this special exception will not have a substantial adverse impact on public safety or create nuisance conditions detrimental to public interest or conditions likely to result in increased law enforcement response. Our response is that our fuel station development will not have a substantial impact on the public safety through on-site management and participation with convenience store condition programs.
Thank you.
Moving to number eight, the establishment of your proposed special exception does not create a concentration or proliferation of the same or similar types of special exception use, which concentration may be detrimental to the development or redevelopment of the area in which the special exception use is proposed to be developed. And our response is that it does not create a substantial detrimental use of this area, and that it provides a different use of this area and plans to be an integral part of this community. Number nine, the proposed special exception is consistent with the character intent of the underlying zoning district as indicated in the zoning district purpose statement and with any applicable overlay zoning district or adopted plan goals and requirements. And our response would be the fuel station is consistent with all zoning district and use standards for this area. Number 10, the proposed special exception is appropriate for its location and compatible with the permitted uses adjacent to and in the vicinity of the property. And our response is that it is compatible with uses in this area and vicinity of this property. The proposed special exception is compatible with the general character of the district in which it is proposed. Our response is that it does meet the district character of the surrounding area. Number 12, the proposed special exception will not have an adverse impact on the land values of the surrounding properties, and our response is that it will not adversely impact land values of the surrounding area. And number 13, the proposed special exception will not adversely affect the public interest, and that our response is that it will not adversely impact the public interest and provide a successful development of that part of this community.
Thank you. Appreciate you doing that. I know it's a lot, but appreciate you on the record.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Kevin. Yes.
Is this subject to a design overlay? And that's the North Main overlay? And what's there now? So there's no building or anything else there, it's just,
Vacant parking lot, basically.
okay.
Corner that's not part of the question is like a title cash line thing.
I alone.
What's the, I have a question for you real fast. The response to number 8 is the proliferation. Do you know how many other similar locations are in the area and how far away there are?
Speedway, I don't know the distance, it would be just north of here, and a few other independent locations, but no other neighboring.
So exactly how many are we talking about within, say, a mile in either direction?
Either direction, I would
Any direction?
say 4 to 5.
In less than a mile.
Yeah, I can't even think of the next one around there.
I can.
Which one's you?
Yes, 4 of them in less than a mile in this location. There's the Valero, which is right up near the Michaels. Down, there's a Speedy, maybe like not even a block away from there is a Speedy. A block up from that is a Sunoco.
And they all have convenience stores?
They
with
all
them?
have convenience stores.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's, I mean, gas stations don't count, it's only convenience stores, but of course, nobody has a gas station much anymore.
Right.
Okay. So you think 4-ish?
There's 4 I can see right here on the map, yeah.
And there's nothing on Sunset, either direction? It's only on Main?
Yeah, not on Sunset.
It's only on North Main, okay.
There's a convenience store up on Sunset, less than a mile away, Bucks. It's a fish and convenience store. They also sell like tackle, bait.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That
That's
Valero
less than a mile
is back
away.
at North Main. and
Yeah, the Valero is
River Drive.
less than a mile away, yeah.
Okay, all right, wow, okay.
There's a lot of convenience stores in the area, and there's a Family Dollar right across the street. But I don't think it's board discussion time yet, is it?
I'm asking a question, I was asking a question for, so do you have any information on how far you think people travel to come to your store?
So typically, we're not a destination stop, but we're more providing the convenience of the traffic already there at the intersection rather than.
Does anybody have any further questions for the applicant? Thank you all for the testimony.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Is there anybody here from the public that would like to speak on this matter? Very good. Welcome. Good afternoon.
Thank you. I'm Basil Garcia, and I'm a resident of the Hyatt Park Keenan Terrace neighborhood and have been since 1973. During these 50 years, our neighborhood has been patiently waiting for improvements to work their way into our part of town. During the last few years, we've seen this wish beginning to come true. I can cite the North Main streetscaping, Hyatt Park revitalization, Peak Drift Brewery development, and the master plan by the City of Columbia Planning Department for the North Main corridor. It is this master plan that I feel should guide us in making a decision about this special exception before the board today, as well as the 13-point checklist, which we just heard recounted. First, the master plan. In Section 3, page 89, the plan suggests removing the old Skibo-Newman service station, it's been removed now, to improve the aesthetics of this gateway to our community. As you know, that service station is gone, but replacing it with another, larger one goes against the guidance of this master plan. Instead, the plan suggests small retail uses adjacent to the intersection. As the master plan says, this is a gateway and its businesses should be inviting. Convenience stores are rarely inviting. Regarding this special exception checklist, of the 13 comments required, this project is plainly incompatible with at least 3. Number 3, the no adverse impact on traffic. It's hard to see how this requirement could be accomplished by adding a high traffic volume gas station to the intersection which the master plan calls one of the most heavily congested intersections in the North Columbia community. The next one, no adverse impact on aesthetic character. When have we ever thought that a 15-foot canopy with strong lighting would be an aesthetic improvement? And lastly, and most importantly, and I can answer some of your questions about proliferation, it will be a proliferation of similar types of special exception use. There are 2 convenience stores with gas stations 0.2 of a mile. One of those you can see from that location, 2 more within a half a mile, and 1 more within a mile, making a total of 5 within the mile. So it's nothing new. It is another, it is a proliferation and a concentration of convenience stores and the gas station. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
I have a question for staff.
Yes.
Now, when we're talking about the design overlay and master plan sort of things, is that us or is that the Design Review Commission?
So that would be our planning staff and the DDRC.
So that's not within our purview?
Correct. Correct.
Is there another gentleman here?
Like come podium. Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Lyman Munson, and I'm the Vice President of Hyatt Park Keenan Terrace Neighborhood Association, and I'm the one who wrote the letter of opposition from Hyatt Park Keenan Terrace. There were other letters of opposition from our neighboring association. And I thank Basil for his comments about where we've been and where we're going, where we are now. It's been a long road to get to where we are now. North Main has been sort of an old road. It's just finished, what, $70 million worth of improvements. And a lot of the improvements were at the nose. North Main, Sunset, anyone who rides on Sunset understands it's full up. You go from a 2-lane road to 4 lanes, you go east, you go west, you go from 4 lanes, turning, left turns, right turns at North Main. And then we go down to 2 lanes. And all those cars try to get into a single lane that are going on Beltline, Sunset, from the hospital over to River Drive. So clearly there are vehicular issues. I think any time that traffic turns at the intersection, it slows traffic down. The turn just past the intersection into a fuel center, as it's referred to, proposed fuel station development will slow traffic down. And so for the applicant to suggest in his responses that he may do a traffic study at some point in the future and will comply with whatever that is, results of that. That's not the basis of giving an exception. If he needs a traffic study, he ought to do it now. He ought to have a chance, just like previously, to understand what the traffic is. For anyone who lives and travels north on North Main, as I do every day, coming from work to going home, it's, even with the new road, it's crazy. At North Main, where this new proposed development will be, you see the speedway. There is a sign that says speedway. It's 1/10 of a mile. You go around the corner, I'm pointing at, but that can't really see on this map. But if you just go up, there it is. Then you continue, curve around the corner, and then there's a snow. That's a convenience store for gas pumps. This gas pumps, by the way, there are 24 fueling stations that we're looking at. 6 lines, each of which have 4 fueling stations. 24 vehicles can fuel at a single time. And you know what? Right now, we don't need it. Neighbors don't do it. We got plenty of gas. We got plenty of fuel. So to say that there won't be any of the 13 points of exception, other than number 1 and number 2, I couldn't disagree with the applicant's characterization. why there will not be a problem or an adverse effect. What we really want is development that builds on the neighborhood. That's what the master plan started in 2010. We all came together as citizens, had this charade, whatever it was, at Columbia College, where we all talked about what it is we wanted to be. We came up with that, the villages of North Columbia. And this isn't part of it. We never talked about, what we need is a big Circle K with 24 fuel stations and a big C station. I appreciate they want it. There's a lot of traffic. I'm sure they'll sell a lot of gasoline, but it won't do anything for us, the people who live here. And so we're asking that you deny this exception.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else?
Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak? Yep. Come on. Hey, please state your name.
My name is Elva Stinson, and I'm a member of the Hyatt Park Keenan Terrace neighborhood also.
Wonderful,
I've
thank
lived
you.
there since 1980. I've seen a lot of changes in this neighborhood. And I won't.
You mind
lower
pulling your
your
mic
mic?
down just a little bit?
I
Yeah.
won't go over things that pretty much people have already said, but what Lyman just said was the special exceptions. Many of these, I don't know whether did you get a letter from the Hyatt Park president? Okay. So I
Yes.
won't.
Yes, ma'am.
And she talks about the good neighbor clause, which has to do a lot with the type of businesses that are put in here.
Yes.
That's right.
And as we've already shown in our neighborhood over and over again, these places are hotspots for panhandling, crime. There was even a shooting at one of the convenience stores that's not more than a mile from where this proposed place is. So you're bringing, what he says about saturating, you're saturating our area with stores that do not help our neighborhood. So that one place right there is not running. The other thing that I wanted to say, we talked about, I thought you mentioned a minute ago, Ms. Finner, about the design overlay doesn't affect you. You guys don't have to deal with any of that sort of thing. And as far as zoning, y'all don't work together. Is that what I'm hearing?
We're here to judge the use. Is the use compatible with the property?
Right.
Well, okay. So the City of Columbia Planning and Development came up with a Villages of North Main plan, and part of that was a North Main corridor design overlay. And I know that he said that in one of the exceptions here talks about any applicable overlay zoning district or adopted plan goals. A part of that review process in this plan, this on the city of website, says that they have to, anything that requires a zoning permit must first obtain a certificate of design approval from either the DDRC or staff. And this includes changing current businesses or new construction. That's never been talked about. As far as we know, they have not done that. And I feel like that should be as number 9 on your design overlay. So
They
that's
would
an
have to do
exception.
that, and they would have to do that.
They would have to do
Yeah.
that, okay. Let's see. Well, we would have talked about that one, so. And I agree with Lyman that most of these, they've done traffic study, they haven't done lighting studies, they haven't aesthetic studies, nothing else have they done to show us that they're going to be able to comply with these special exceptions for this business. And I would ask that you decline the special exception. What we've seen in these neighborhoods, that convenience stores are alcohol delivery systems. And that's why you have so many people loitering, crime, et cetera. We don't need it. But they still, beyond that, they don't meet these requirements. And I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have another staff query. When we pass these conditions and they do the good neighbor plan and it fails to be met up with, is there a zoning enforcement? What would be the remedy for a neighborhood that was finding that there was loitering and all these things that weren't supposed to be happening?
Yes, any condition that's put on any sort of approval or whatever by the board is enforced by zoning staff, and we do have zoning inspectors. And so not meeting a condition of approval would be a zoning violation.
So the neighborhoods could alert you to that, and you would send out an inspector.
Yes.
Good question, Catherine. Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on this matter? For or against? All right, applicant, would you like a rebuttal? You have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
I'd like to start by saying, with the design overlay in place, the intent is so we are not to be an outlier in the community. We do not want to come in and to be something that is not part of that community or complacent with everything else in the area. Regarding the traffic, a traffic study is absolutely required as part of the study, something that we do here. On Sunset Drive, the proposal is only a right-in, right-out. I believe there is a completed plan already, so traffic would not be taking a left on Sunset to come into our site. And the full access shown on North Main Street is, I believe, over 400 feet from the intersection, well distance enough for it not to be a hindrance to the safety of the intersection here.
Can you show the site plan? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, and just adding on to Catherine's points, we've taken some time to meet with community members, business associations as well, and hear their concerns. We have every intent to try to meet every single question and concerns that we can meet. But you said this intent's not to be an outlier with all the expansion going on in this area and development going on in this area. That's what drives the idea for this site being what we're proposing today. And we certainly are not trying to hide from any of those traffic study implications or anything. We definitely commit to doing the roadway improvements that are necessary as part of this development and being part of this community and really addressing all the concerns that we have.
Yep, thank y'all. All right, at this time, we'll move into board discussion. I'll let someone else start it off first this time.
I'll start it off for you. Based on what our latitude is when it comes to special exceptions and I think there's two issues here with this particular proposal for a special exception. One is the amount of convenience stores with gas pumps that are already in the area. You either have a proliferation of gas stations, gas pumps with convenience stores, or convenience stores without gas pumps, which this area already has. I think if you add the convenience stores without gas pumps plus the convenience stores with gas pumps, you get almost 11. So I think just in good conscience and considering the comments by the neighborhood, there's still so many things they're still waiting to get. I know one of the things that area is still waiting on is an actual grocery store, because there is not one in a 1.5-mile radius from that location. And so I just don't think it's in good conscience for our board to vote for a special exception for something that kind of goes against some of the basic criteria that we have set. So that's my take.
Any other thoughts?
No, I mean,
John?
I'll chime in briefly. I'm not worried, I'm not going to say I'm not worried about the master plan or the, intent of it, but I am worried about making sure that it meets all the criteria of the special exception. I don't feel like it does. So the proliferation is just kind of obvious.
Catherine?
Well, I see proliferation as an issue. I do think, in terms of traffic, it sounds like what they're doing is merely capturing existing traffic. They're going to divert the traffic into their thing that would have gone somewhere else. And in my experience, I go to the place on the right. So, if I were going toward the hospital from Maine, I'm going to turn right and probably stop and get some gas there or pick up a snack or something. So I'm not so sure that there's an additional traffic there. I am concerned about number 9, that it's consistent with the character and intent of the underlying zoning district and any applicable overlay zoning district or adopted plan goals and requirements, and it just doesn't seem like it is. I mean, I gather that the reason they're citing it on the street is to get that front-facing thing, but it's still not what they're looking for. And I really wish we could get a grocery store up there for y'all. I really, really do. Everything I'm hearing is it's not going to happen, but still, I'm sorry.
We need a bigger site than this.
Yeah, I know. But I do think, I'm really concerned about the proliferation, and I'm really concerned about the fact that it's really not compatible with the stated design
That's a
overlay,
good
which
point.
is obviously within the purview of DDRC, but it's also number 9 for us.
That's a good point.
Yeah, the one thing I'm getting hung up on, and y'all convinced me, was the proliferation. So Sherrod, thank you for pointing out all those numbers. I can get past, I feel like through the design process, the development process, the traffic, the aesthetics, all that could be met, but that doesn't overcome the proliferation. So that's my thoughts. Got anything extra, Celia?
Sure. So I think we've hit on just about sort of all my, from a business standpoint, I totally understand why you guys would put it there. I mean, as you were saying, that right turn, I think the site plan that sort of highlights my biggest concern is the one where you can see the semi cut through. So when you think about pedestrian safety, and this is a really quick, Main Street has been improved for vehicular traffic. The improvements were a little short-sighted in my opinion. And so when you think about a semi whipping in off of Main Street, that's not encouraging.
Oof, yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Pedestrian
That's a good point.
safety. And so I think they've done what they can do, citing it on the street like Catherine mentioned. But just, again, to focus our thoughts on a convenience store, the gas station portion is irrelevant to our discussion. But there would still be that traffic.
Pedestrian safety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The pedestrian safety and then the proliferation. So while, again, from a business standpoint, you guys, it would totally make sense for you that you would have plenty of business, but from our standpoint, the neighborhood does not need that. You're over, yeah, you're
Kinda
oversaturating
oversaturated
the
already.
neighborhood at that point, so.
Davis, you want to add anything?
I mean, it would definitely be the nicest convenience store in the area, but that doesn't change the fact that there are so many of them within a 1 mile radius of there. So, from the proliferation standpoint, I have a hard time thinking it would make sense to add another. And this one may take the business from the other ones in the area. Not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's just, something to,
It would be nice if the others were more aesthetically pleasing.
yes.
It would.
I mean, the Circle K on Elmwood is a beautiful store, but you can't control the foot traffic, and that's a huge,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think that's some good discussion. So Hope, if this, just thinking where it's going, if this does get voted down that for 12 months, this use couldn't be seen here on this property again, correct?
Yeah, the same request on the same piece of property could not be seen for 12 months.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that being said, I'd like to hear a motion. Can someone provide a motion? Provide a motion? Catherine?
I move that we deny the applicant's request.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion's approved.
Motion's approved.
Right, motion's approved. Gotcha.
But the motion would be denied, not approved.
Her motion.
Well, yeah,
It's a little double.
we got you.
Yeah.
I feel like you're going to get a lot of practice, so it's all good.
All right, moving on. Number 3, case number 3. This is special exception 2023-008. Fort Jackson Boulevard, special exception to permit a multifamily development in zoning district OI. Would the applicant please come forward?
For the record, again, I'm going to recuse myself from this case as well.
Leighton Lord of Nexon Pruitt for the applicant, and I promise this is the last time you'll see me today. I also have Mark James, who's Robert Morgan, in case you have very detailed questions about the project. This is a special exception to allow and permit multifamily, although the property's already zoned to allow multifamily. That's within your purview to permit it. This will be a 300, up to 300 unit Class A apartment community with amenities and open space, and it's going to be a very nice, high-end project. The applicant, FHT2 of Richland County LLC, is controlled by an individual who lives next to this property. So I think it's important to note that the applicant is essentially developing this in his own backyard. We believe that this project meets all 13 of the requirements for a special exception for BOZA. It will have no adverse impacts on the surrounding areas. In fact, according to a lot of the information that you all got through neighbors, and a great quote from Coletta Murray Kitt, who lives next door at Hampton Hills, who thinks this will increase the value of her house, so she's very happy about it. It will not have an adverse impact on the public interest. This is currently open space that's hard to control. There are several illegal encampments on it that the owner tries to keep off. This will allow this property to be better controlled and will therefore have a positive impact on the public interest. It's also conducive with the general character of this area. There's multifamily next door, there's multifamily across the street. It's a good area for multifamily. It's very close to the interstate. It's close to Fort Jackson, it's close to the city, it's close to the university. It's a great location, and it's already a place where multifamily is. And it will also not have an adverse public impact or an adverse impact on traffic. And, we believe it supports all 13 of the requirements. If you have any more detailed questions about the project, Mr. James.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. James, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. One thing I noticed on the plan that you put up that I wish we had corrected, it's my fault. Leighton's done a great job of describing what it is. Let me real quick clarify what it's not. It does not include the hotel or the restaurant. That is not a part of this application. There are no plans or discussions going. This is a conceptual land development plan prepared by Ken Simmons, a local, very capable landscape architect, but it was conceptual only, and what we're here for is a component of it. And as Leighton had mentioned, it is intended to be a Class A project. The property owner, who is part of the development team as well, joins this. He loves adjoining this. His kind of consistent mantra to me has been, it better be nice. I don't want to live next door to something that's not going to be a quality development. And I would like to speak to number 3 on y'all's criteria, I believe, dealing with traffic. I know that in some of the emails that were sent in, some of the other conversations that have taken place, there's a concern about traffic. When we were doing the QT at the corner, the Quick Trip at the corner where Fort Jackson Boulevard and our entrance road exists, we had to go before the DOT, and we went ahead and designed and planned that entrance for the development of the rest of the property. At that time, our high desire was to get a traffic signal there. As you can imagine, Quick Trip Corporation would like to have that. At the time, we did not meet the criteria. We did a traffic, not a traffic study, but a signal warrant study, and provided it to the DOT. The reaction was that it doesn't meet the criteria today, but any future development on the property will qualify it. We did not do a traffic impact study at that time because that was in 2020 and we were in the middle of COVID. And nobody trusted the information and the data to be reliable as far as forecasting what would be coming. So what we ended up doing with the DOT in March of 2021, we signed a memorandum of understanding between the property owner and the Department of Transportation that will require for any future development on this property a full traffic impact study with the anticipation that it will meet the standards of a signal, a traffic signal. And the full cost of the traffic impact study and the design and the construction and installation of that will be borne by the property owner, and he has actually worked it into, we worked it into the Quick Trip lease as well as the remainder of the project. So it is a funded signal. Once we are able to complete the traffic impact study, the assumption is we're going to meet the criteria and that we're going to install a signal there. So hopefully that'll alleviate some of the concerns about the traffic. I do know that from a pedestrian standpoint, I know that's a concern as well in that section 3. There are some residential areas across the street, some apartments, some other single-family houses and things like that. Currently, what we have is people are crossing the street to get to the QT, and to my knowledge, we haven't had anybody hit by a car yet, but that's going to happen if we don't do something. Part of the intersection improvements here, I'm sure, would include crosswalks. That would be expected. So not only are we not substantially impairing the current traffic environment, I think we make a strong case that we would be improving it. I have personally met with the president of the Hampton Hill Condos Homeowners Association next door. He has shared this information with his board. I believe they shared it with their remaining residents. My understanding is that there's no substantial objection to what we're proposing. Leighton made a reference to the person that was quoted in the newspaper who said that she viewed it as a positive. A project like this would, she felt likely, be an enhancement to her property value. I've also met with the Kings Grant Homeowners Association Board and had several ongoing conversations. I know that they have had both a Facebook page notification of our project and the details, shared this application specifically. I think initially there were some concerns when the idea was that we were including a hotel and a restaurant. I know there will continue to be concerns on their part about the traffic. We've shared with them the information on the traffic study. But my hope is that largely they'll support it. I know that that's a big neighborhood and there are a lot of folks in there. Unlikely to have everybody support, but I'd like to think what we did with the QT, we honored what we said we were going to do, and that's turned out to be a good development. I certainly know that that's a regular spot for me, and when I'm in there, I see some of the folks that I know that live in Kings Grant and other places in the area, so I think hopefully this will be viewed as positive. So, any other questions, I'm happy to answer. As Leighton referenced, we have Robert Morgan here with Homes Urban. They are part of the development team, and he will be can get more granular into what the design would be. If it sounds like that's not something that we'll have to comply, obviously, with all the city code and requirements, the new zoning requirements. On a design standpoint, we do also have to come back for final site plan approval, which will get more granular in the civil engineering and stormwater, things like that, and get more into the layout. I know we got to tweak this plan for some setbacks that are required, but for if there's any, for informational purposes, desire on y'all's part to find out more on the project itself, Robert is more than happy to share some of those details with you and answer.
Yeah, Mr. Dent, let me ask a question real quick. Y'all say 300 units. Do you know approximately how many beds y'all are thinking about those units?
270, I believe, 50% of them will be seen.
Hey, and please state your name.
50%, Robert Morgan.
Hey,
Homes
thank
urban,
you.
50% one bedrooms, 45% twos, and 5% for typical unit mix on a project like that. That has not been finalized, but give you an idea.
Okay. So what's that? Sorry, trying to do quick math.
Yeah, dude,
A lot.
It's about 9 or
like-
600 bed, about 600 bed, is that right?
Yeah.
More than that.
No.
450, 500, 450, yeah,
150,
450.
yeah.
Okay. And do you know approximately, what rent range you're looking for here?
It would be high-end market rate rents. I would say the most likely comps would be the Divine District project on Vine Street, you may be familiar with, or Cardinal Crossing and Forest Acres on Forest Drive. That would be our project.
What you're doing?
okay.
Okay.
I have some questions.
Go ahead, Catherine. Yeah.
Have you, I'm sorry if you did mention it, have you talked to the Brandon Acres people?
We tried, we were not successful connecting with them.
Do they have a neighborhood association? Do you know, are you aware?
Oh,
Oh, looks like some of them are
Yeah,
here.
yeah, you're right.
Some of them are here.
Yes. Okay.
We'll hear from them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is, I'm looking in the memorandum of understanding, what is Secuno Boulevard? Is that the little curvy thing that's coming along?
That's the road, that's the entrance road is designed for, to be a public street at some point in the future. And as part of that design and approval, at the time we were developing the QT, we had to name it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I have a question, and maybe I'm missing it here, but this particular special exception is permitted multifamily, is that right? But multifamily use is already permitted in this zoning district. So what's the special exception for?
By special exception.
It's permitted by special exception.
By special
In
exception
OI,
only?
yeah.
Got you, okay, thank you.
can I piggyback on that question a little bit? Sorry, because are they limited because it's reference to 300 rental units, and there's, on the future site plan, there's a restaurant and a hotel, and that's all good, but we're not looking at the lots that were done. So is there, in the future, could they come back and put as many multifamily units on the 6 acres that they wanted to, or would they have to come back? Does that make?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the base zoning district, are you referring to like the density that they would be?
It's sort of in perpetuity.
Well,
like
I guess
we're
what she's
granting a
saying is,
special
since they're not
exception.
putting anything at the restaurant and hotel, can they then go and put more apartments there?
Correct.
Well-
Because it's all one property.
So under OI, there's a 16.4 unit per acre density maximum. So,
So as long as they did.
yeah,
Oh,
now,
sorry.
yeah, so, but today is a special exception for the use. But there are obviously going to be restrictions just from the base zoning district that they have
Right.
to meet, yeah. Yes.
So that, I have a question. So we're only considering the 300 units on 6.2 acres because with the density? Or are y'all taking into account the wetland, like the wetlands with that density?
I don't know the answer to that question. There's 7 acres of wetlands in the property that is designated by the Corps of Engineers and will remain. But I'm not sure I know.
Yeah, what's your question, John?
Like the site itself is,
They're entitled to 16.9 units per
Yeah.
acre, and his question is does that include wetland acres? Does that factor
and
in
I guess,
wetland acres?
yeah, and I guess the 6.2, like y'all will subdivide out the 6.2 acres? Because the site itself is 36 acres.
Yeah, the site was 38 acres, about 7.5 or 8 acres is wetlands. The QT is about 1.85 acres. So the remainder of the site would be,
So, yeah, in the density
but it has not been
calculation.
subdivided in any way, so
I mean, I
I don't know
know,
if that, the undevelopable property included in
Calculation, yeah, calculation.
I guess, Hope, this is a special exception request for the use. If they were seeking a different density per what's allowed per the ordinance, they'd have to come back for a variance on the
Right.
density.
Well, So you can't request a variance on density.
Okay,
Yeah, so they wouldn't be able to request a variance on density.
okay.
So obviously, must be compliant because they're not requesting it, sort of thing, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and we don't have site plans, yet, obviously, with the details
Right.
of units and things of that nature.
Okay. I think that answers mine. Do y'all have any other questions on that? Thank you, Mr. James.
Thank you.
All right, would anyone from the public like to speak on this? Hey, yes, ma'am. Please state your name.
My name is Sarah Navarez.
Can you bring
Yeah,
the,
just pull the mic down
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you.
Sarah Navarez, is that good?
Yeah, perfect.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. And sorry if I seem a little anxious, I have to pick up my daughter from daycare in a few minutes, so I was hoping we got to be before we could do this. But I'm here to oppose the request. I am a homeowner at the corner of Cedar Terrace and Woodlawn. And if you look at the map that they submitted, this red star is where my house is. So that gives you a cue of how close it is. The green border along which you see those 3 apartment complexes, that is Woodlawn Avenue, which is a street composed entirely of single-family brick ranch houses. And so when they say that it's consistent with the neighborhood, it may be consistent with the development 30 on the other side of the 30 acres along Fort Jackson, but it's absolutely not consistent with the development along Woodlawn. And if you look at how close those buildings are, they're proposing to build within 50 feet of our property lines on Woodlawn because the rest of the site is a wetland that they can't build on. So they're telling you they're going to be shoving all of this development right up along Woodlawn where it is not consistent with our neighborhood. Our neighborhood was not consulted. We were not informed in any way up until there was a news story where they happened to interview one of our neighbors. And the reason this is especially concerning to our neighborhood is if you remember 2 months ago in January, you approved an apartment complex for the Drake Street project. That apartment complex also used Cedar Terrace as an egress for the apartment, and the road that is marked as the gated emergency access is Cedar Terrace. So this is using the exact same street as you approved 150 apartments on 2 months ago. And now they're coming back for another 300 apartments. So in our census tract, we only have 2,500 houses in our census tract. That's 450 apartments being requested to be added to a 2,500 census tract. That's an 18% increase just in those last 2 months worth of approvals. If you look at our actual neighborhood in the Brandon Acres Cedar Terrace neighborhood, there's only 370 houses. So they're proposing to add 300 unit apartment complex to a 370 unit neighborhood. So they cannot possibly say that's not a proliferation of a certain type of special exception to put these multifamily, 450 multifamily units in the course of 2 months, 300 in just this one proposal. That's clearly a proliferation that's not consistent with the neighborhood. The second thing I want to tell you, we talked last time about how stable our neighborhood is. It's 68% owner occupied. So if we go from a 68% owner occupied neighborhood with only 14% change, and this is from the American and Community Survey study, that's very much more stable, much less moving than the majority of our city and our county. So to put a 300 unit neighborhood apartment complex, another 150, that clearly outnumbers the existing owner-occupied neighborhood character. Our neighborhood's been there since 1958. So to have that much change, a consistent neighborhood from 1958, and make such a massive change to it in such a short period of time without even, as they admitted, talking to our neighbors and our neighborhood association, that is not compatible to me with the purpose of this board and the purpose of the city. So I just think that alone, on the numbers alone, should tell you that this should not be approved. But the second thing that I want to tell you is I bought a house in this neighborhood. I bought a house on the corner of Woodlawn and Cedar Terrace because I like that I could open my door and see woods. And we have deer that live on this property. As I said, it's a wetlands. We've got deer, we've got turtles, we've got all these things. We've got chicken in the backyard. I have fawns being raised in my yard that my daughter has been able to look out the window and see fawns coming across the yard and eating my blueberries. And that's the type of neighborhood we are. We're not a neighborhood where we have a multi-story apartment complex looming over. They'll be able to see into my daughter's bedroom. That's not what we want. That's not the neighborhood we want. So I want to leave you with a different picture. I'm sure what they're planning is lovely, but this is Easter egg hunt that we did on Woodlawn last year. And you can see these trees, that's the apartment. The one that they're saying is going to be near the gated emergency access, this is the house they're building it behind. Where these trees are, that will be the apartment they're building. And I promise we did not stage this. This legitimately is our Easter egg hunt that we did on our block. But this is what you're replacing. You're replacing this with apartments. So I just want you to consider that.
Thank you for your testimony. Would anyone else like to speak? Yeah, please come forward. Thank you.
Afternoon, board members. Name is Cameron Rast. You'll have to forgive me, I'm not quite as prepared as Ms. Sarah here. I actually just learned about this last night because I was not solicited by the developers or anything like that to speak on. They didn't, as I said, didn't ask permission or anything like that. Didn't ask my opinion on this new development. That being said, I've been in this neighborhood for probably a year now, and I moved here because it was actually from a little town called Cameron, South Carolina. If you guys are familiar with the area, I'm a little small farm town. I moved in the area because it was a little bit of a mix of city and home. Like I've got the woods surrounding me, which is really, really nice. But I moved here because I like the convenience, of course, and I really, really enjoy the neighborhood. I've met multiple neighbors who, a few of them unfortunately couldn't be here today. They had to work. I took some time off work myself to come over here and speak with you nice, fine folks over here. I do want to say that I believe this new development is a direct violation of these special exceptions here. Namely the vehicle and traffic. The gentleman spoke earlier that there's not been many traffic studies. I believe that it would, obviously you're talking 300 new apartment complexes. Yes, that's going to be a giant, adverse effect on the traffic in that area. Of course, the adequate parking, I don't know if you guys have actually physically been on the property itself. I got permission from Mr. Finley himself, who owns the property, I believe, to walk the property. Again, I'm a country boy at heart, so I like to walk to the woods. Sarah mentioned the deer earlier. I love looking at the deer. I actually feed them in my backyard. I put some corn out, and I get to wake up to them every morning. It's really, really awesome. But I walk the property, and walking through there, it is a very, very hilly piece of property. You see up here with the wetlands area, it's very, very mushy, very nasty in there. Just to provide any sort of adequate parking there, I think would be very, very difficult. It would certainly ravage the land to really get any sort of additional parking in that area there. I know the gentleman mentioned earlier about vagrants in the area. That he said there were multiple vagrants. That is absolutely false. There was only one, actually, and I reported him to Mr. Finley himself. A friend of mine's, on one of my walks through there, I noticed a tent. Literally just one person, and unfortunately, I believe they are one of our veterans, which is terrible. I can only assume that, of course, but I know many of them in that area are veterans due to the VA hospital. Again, adverse effect on the adjoining properties. I absolutely believe that would have an adverse effect. I moved into this neighborhood because it's a very, very nice, well-kept neighborhood. Thankfully, we don't have many problems in that neighborhood. I think we've only had the police called in that area maybe once, to my knowledge, and that was just due because someone thought fireworks were blasting off in the area. Thought it was a gunshot. Okay, but the aesthetic of the area, like Sarah said earlier, obviously you're putting apartment complexes right in the middle of the woods, which is very, very pretty. I really myself just enjoy being close to the woods like that. The effect on the course of public safety, like Sarah said earlier, we're going to have another apartment complex that's in our neighborhood. That will be an absolute issue of public safety. If you've got a secondary emergency access here, if there's an emergency in the area and we have to evacuate everyone, well, that's would be a major traffic problem to get out of there. Again, going back to the point number 3, the vehicles and traffic, that's going to be a problem. The land values in the area, of course, I think is another one that would certainly, yes, I understand that the young lady that was spoken to, she owns, I guess, an apartment at one of the local apartment complexes. Yes, her property would absolutely probably go up in value. Mine, however, would not. Who wants to move into a house and walk out the front door and see a giant apartment complex sticking right up in the front? I'm sure none of you folks would, really walk out your front door and see something like that. That would be a terrible detriment to my property value. Again, I'm a salesman myself, so, I understand the value of property, and I'm a fairly young guy, 36 years old. I look forward to starting my family in this neighborhood. But like I said, I try to tug at your heartstrings as best I can, because I know obviously, pumping new money into Columbia is a great thing. I mean, I think it really, really is. But doing it in this way, on this particular piece of property, I just feel like is not a very good idea. I would also like to motion that, I'd like to work with the developers if we could. Maybe come up with some sort of, common ground. Okay, you've got, my house is literally right across the street from Sarah's, I spoke earlier. I'm literally right across the street. If we could propose something where, you build the apartments on, the north side of the property there. Don't build on the very hilly, the dangerous area close to where it's listed here. Maybe where the restaurant or hotel's listed. That'd be a great spot to stick some hotels. I would certainly be, open to working to move that forward. But as it sits right now, the proposed plan right here is, I don't think, very profitable for at least anyone in Brandon Acres. So, but with that, I appreciate y'all's time, and look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Rast.
Yes, sir.
All right, anyone else in the public like to speak? Yep, please come forward. Thank you. Hey.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My name is Julie Giglio.
Julie, see, what was the last name? Julie? what?
Giglio.
Giglio. Okay,
G-I-G-L-I-O.
thank you.
Yeah. I live in the Kings Grant neighborhood, which is across the other side. I moved here in 2018. I come from Connecticut, New York area, and our zoning is just a little bit different. We are very into making sure that the community kind of exists as the community is. And here, and I love Columbia, don't get me wrong, I kind of find like things are just built next to one another, but there isn't a lot of logic in how things are done. And I am from Stamford, Connecticut, which is a very similar city to Columbia. And the community has really done a great job with the administration to make sure that the community stays intact. Putting all that aside, it's an empty lot, so I have to stay and look at it and say, well, what would I want there? I don't want a hotel or a restaurant, I think. I don't know. I wasn't aware that the community was backing up to it. I wasn't aware that there were apartments that were being built over there. So I'm glad I came tonight because I kind of felt like I was told, or I learned what was in my bubble of Kings Grant, but there's really more to the situation than just these there. So I just want to kind of give you the Kings Grant perspective. Traffic, I know we talked a lot about traffic. I actually have my phone. I drove down it today. There was a man crossing from the QT. There was a car parked in the middle. There's always a car parked in the middle across from QT. Sometimes we have 18-wheelers on the side. There is no crosswalk anywhere from Kings Grant all the way to Fort Jackson, all the way to, what do you call that, Garner's Ferry. So if you really want to make it a community where people can walk, because imagine, you don't want them driving, you want them to walk to Marshall's, you want them to walk to PetSmart, you want them to walk to the Food Line, they want to eat dinner at Applebee's, you want them to walk. If you're just looking at that traffic light intersection right there, you have to really look beyond that point, because I would prefer people not get in the car. They may want to make a nice night out. So that's the comment with the traffic. I think the light is great, but I think it kind of has to go just beyond that, kind of to where all the shopping is, and make it more of a community. The only other thing that I wanted to bring up was the school-age children situation. Oh, well, and also traffic. I was in an accident. Anyway,
Yeah.
I I was T-boned at 77. Something has to be done with that traffic light. People don't get it. And finally, school-age children really has to be considered because they will be going to the local public schools, and we had the same problem in the city of Stamford. As the community grew, the kindergarten, first, second, third, elementary schools significantly increased. So it's just something that has to be considered because the Board of Education really didn't plan for that once these communities were brought in. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Yes, ma'am, please come forward. Thanks for sticking with us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening to the comments. My name is Catherine Lockhart. I'm a resident of Kings Grant. And like Julie said, I'm glad I came because I've learned a little bit, and I view this as an opportunity for y'all to learn a little bit too, and just information gathering as you make your decision. What Julie said about being T-boned right there at 77. Fort Jackson Boulevard, right there at the intersection with 77, is incredibly dangerous. We do have tractor trailers sometimes parked in the middle of the road, in the inlet and egress, I guess the merge lanes, you want to say. Sometimes they're parked along Jackson Boulevard. And I don't know if those are tractor trailers that are going to the QT or if they're parked there because they're, need a rest break or whatever. It could be any reason, but there is a lot of traffic that backs up on Jackson Boulevard all the way back down towards Kilburn Road. Most of them are trying to turn left onto 77 heading north. So it creates one long kind of log jam. We can get around it. We know how to get around it to get into our neighborhood. But it can be tricky right there. It can also be tricky if you're coming out of Fort Jackson trying to make a left-hand turn to get on to 77 heading south. One of the comments that was presented by the developer is an assumption that DOT is going to come in and do a traffic study and put a stoplight there. That's an assumption. I don't know that that's a guarantee. I don't know if we can guarantee that this development is not going to happen without some type of change. Another thing to consider is we brought up Cardinal Crossing as an example, which is a great development. Traffic on on Forest Drive is insane and sometimes kind of prevents people from actually using the amenities that we have there. But they also did have a traffic pattern change, and there is a stoplight there, and that probably went through some sort of approval process, and maybe there were businesses that were happy about it, maybe there were businesses that were not, but something changed there when that apartment complex was built. I was in favor of QT being developed there. I love the QT, I use it, but it is the wild, wild west right there. And we're talking about adding another 300 units. How many vehicles? I don't know. I don't know how many vehicles come in and out of that access right there, but it's a lot, but 300 times, you might have 1.5 vehicles per unit. That's going to be another in and out right there. That we just need to keep people safe, and that's something that people have to think about. We have to keep the people that are already using that avenue safe, and then if this does go forward, how we're going to keep the residents in that area safe. Y'all have a lot to consider. This isn't as simple as, this is going to be a really nice apartment complex. I'm sure it is. It'll be brand new. It won't be brand new forever, though. And we have to plan for the future when making those decisions. And also take into consideration, again, the neighbors that are already there that have purchased homes in Cedar Terrace, and that's a lot to consider. So just here to speak for y'all so you can help get some more information. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Lockhart. Appreciate it. All right. Do we have any other members of the public that wish to speak on this case? Okay, seeing none. Applicant, y'all certainly heard some concern, but yeah.
Appreciate very much all the comments and very much appreciate the to respond. Of course, it's one group you can't get in touch with that is opposed to what we're doing, and I do think my personal belief is that it's just a lack of information. If you go back to, can you go back to the plan just to address a couple of things specifically? The gated emergency access is going to be a requirement of the fire marshal. That's going to be a code-required access point. It is not intended to carry traffic in any circumstance other than per the fire code, per the fire marshal's requirement. And that will not change. The orientation of this development.
So you're saying basically that is so that fire engines can get in and put out a fire if there happens to be one?
There's, yeah, there's an emergency, the fire truck needs to get in there, that's a second entrance for them. We've only got this one entrance here, and that's why that's required. The intention here, this entire project is oriented towards Fort Jackson Boulevard. And so the intention is not to have it have any impact on Brandon Acres or Cedar Terrace. The thing I would offer to you today, we still have to go through the final civil engineering and get site plan approval through the Planning Commission. The person who we're making an effort to reach out to that we thought represented this area and was our point of contact obviously is not. What I would offer is to folks who are here tonight is let's find a time to talk about what we can do for buffering and for tweaking our plan that will minimize the impact on them. We got 8 or 9 houses that are directly on the property line, and I understand there are other houses across the street that will be impacted by this. And so let's as we get further into and prior to going before the Planning Commission, allow us an opportunity to collaborate more with them on something that will help with their concerns. A couple of folks have mentioned the traffic on Fort Jackson Boulevard. I just will reiterate and clarify that we have a memorandum of understanding that is signed with the DOT and the property owner that a traffic impact study will be required with our project, and that in the event that we meet the criteria for a traffic signal, which we fully anticipate that we are, that cost will be borne by the developer of the apartments, the owner of the QT, as part of this project. That is not a DOT sitting around a room saying, well, we think we could do a signal here, but we don't have the money for it. That is, I don't disagree. I live not too far from here, and that is in my regular path of travel. A lot of friends in Kings Grant. I go through here a lot, and I do agree that the traffic can be improved, and one of the ways I think it can be improved is through the signal, and I think that'll help. And then in addition to that, the pedestrian crosswalks as part of that intersection improvement, I think will be helpful. The property is, the wetlands are delineated. Those are going to stay the same. The idea is that we're going to include walking trails through there, and we view that as a positive. We view that green space as a positive. That is an enhancement to the property. The idea is not to come in here and clear cut all these trees and build some kind of unattractive development that doesn't fit in the area. And then the other thing I would add is that if you look at good urban planning, if you look at good use of property, this is a textbook multifamily property. The largest frontage this property has is on Interstate 77. That is a typical transition that you're going to see from a less dense suburban single-family neighborhood to an area that, road that carries a lot of traffic, an interstate, a heavily traveled interchange. We're not changing the traffic that's there today in any kind of meaningful way, I think our improvements will make it better. And the fact of the matter is, what people are describing are issues already. You know, I don't think our project here is going to, in a meaningful way, impact the amount of traffic that's going on I-77. And then the final, just point of clarification, is that Quick Trip is not a truck stop. It is not set up, it does not have a capacity to serve 18-wheelers and large trucks. This is a typical suburban type automobile and convenience store, automobile gas refueling and convenience store. So the trucks that are on Fort Jackson Boulevard are not getting off and coming to the Quick Trip because it's a truck stop. They're coming because they're going, this is an area of town that is close to town. It's gaining access to what's approaching the urban center. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in, but I think our project here contemplates some improvements there, as well as I would describe it as responsible development. We're trying to do something that's going to be nice here, that's going to be attractive. And the idea, I will share one funny story with you. Not terribly funny, but it is interesting. 2 years ago, right when we were starting the project with Quick Trip, I got a phone call. I got to know the folks that live in the condos next door, the Hampton Hill condos. And I got a phone call from the then president of that condo association who said, "You need to get over here. We have a guy who is deer hunting on this property." He had come through the condo association and entered the backside of this property. Actually, it's probably a little bit kind of south of this. And he was trying to, he had a shotgun in his hand. He was trying to scare up deer to shoot. So, I mean, I understand the pleasantness of the property, and certainly our development partner that's also an owner in the adjoining property understands that as well. But you know, there is this hopefully would create some activity there that might some stuff like that. Obviously, y'all know what's happening behind the Walmart on Forest Drive. Those folks with the city have been dispersed. We don't really know where they're going, but try to find a spot. So I hope this will be a net positive, and again, would just reiterate the desire to work with the Brandon Acres folks. On that matter, make sure we're hearing the concerns and trying to accommodate them.
I have a question. So, and thank you for being here today to speak on this matter. I just want to make sure, am I hearing you correctly? You said that you want to talk more with the neighborhood before you all...
Well, we still would pursue ask for today's approval of the special exception.
Okay,
but just
okay, I wasn't clear.
recognizing that what we have to do is there's another step to this process, that we have to get site plan approval from the Planning Commission. And, you know, as a developer, what we like to do is to know that our intended use of the property from a high level is viewed as compatible before we start getting into, you know, the site planning, the civil engineering, the architectural work, traffic study. All that stuff is terribly expensive. And if there's some thought that this property on a grand scale doesn't meet the criteria for a special exception, then we'd rather not spend $100,000 on doing that other work to get to the Planning Commission. There will be another opportunity for the public to be heard on the site plan approval at the Planning Commission.
Gotcha.
And really, it probably technically is, some of the concerns would be a little more appropriate once we get the design further down the road and
Gotcha.
thought is
Thank
that
you.
somewhere in that period of time, before we get too far down the road on our design and civil engineering, will be incorporated into our civil plan.
I have a question. Do y'all have any idea what the targeted demographic would be in terms of families, young professionals, maybe that just graduated from South Carolina, or, you know, what the rough age group for a project like this?
Yeah, absolutely. Urban infill project like this, we expect all ranges, but the two typical tranches would be younger folks, young professionals, and then in an asset like this, we also would expect older folks as well.
Okay.
There'll be some in between. Typically, the polar, you know, those two poles, younger professionals as well as older folks, and maybe move out of a single-family home in an environment like this.
Okay. I asked that just around the point that was brought up earlier about the schools and children, you know, additional folks moving here and having kids in school, so.
Traditionally, our communities do not have a ton of families. Again, the bedroom mix here will be more skewed towards an urban apartment community than it would a sparse suburban community, to attract probably, you know, more young professionals or empty nesters. It's not to say there will not be some children, but it shouldn't be a heavy target for any community like this in a location.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Thank y'all. Do you have a question for me, Catherine?
I'm ready to talk.
All right, so this time, yeah, let's go into board discussion. I just have a quick thought, and it kind of piggybacks on what Mr. James said. Just, you know, when you have dense or more dense multifamily, I mean, you want those cars and vehicles dumping out going onto arterial roads such as Fort Jackson Boulevard, a road that can handle the capacity. I certainly understand the concerns of the Brandon Acres, and if the traffic was going through their neighborhood, I could certainly understand the, you know, that being a major concern. But, you know, at an interchange next to the interstate, I mean, this is where you want something like, from a vehicular standpoint, this is where you would want something like this. So that's just a thought on the vehicles. So, any other thoughts, Gerard? You got a thought?
I do. I think what's sticking out to me here is 6 and 11. I think they maybe need a little bit more time. What's sticking out to me here is a substantial adverse impact on the aesthetic character of the area, and particularly when you talk about the space in the buildings with that neighborhood that's on that back end there, as well as 11 if you're looking at the general character of the district there. So I think, and it sounds like to me the developer is willing to work with the community to figure those two things out. So I think when we're talking about aesthetic character, when we're talking about spacing for buildings, I just think it probably needs a little bit more, it probably need to tool a little bit more there. And what I'm hearing is the developer sounds like he wants to work the neighborhood to try to figure that out, because I do think this, I don't even know if it matters whether or not I think this is a good development or not. I think ultimately our job is to kind of figure out, when it comes to the special exception, does it kind of work for both parties as best as it can? And I don't know if, but I think also the developer is telling us they're still really early in the project. So they still have a lot of work to do. They're just trying to see whether or not this can actually get done. So I think if they spent a little bit more time working with the community and maybe came back with a design that kind of spoke to some of the community's needs, I think this would probably be a great project for Columbia. I think it's just kind of early and probably need a little bit more work. That's just my 2 cents.
Catherine? Go ahead.
All right. Well, I guess the first thing I'll do is my little folksy bit, which is, I grew up in Aiken, outside of Aiken. When they threw up the Savannah River plant and laboratory, the bomb plant, they threw up a subdivision, and it was kind of surrounded by forests and woods and fields, and some farmer's field was nearby and stuff. And we ran around in there when I was kids. You know, we ran around everywhere. And bit by bit, it's been developed. And there is now pretty much no field excepting a little horsey area. But basically, it's all developed over time. So you don't have an automatic right to woods and land that you don't own. So that's I mean, it's hard when it happens and your kids can't run around in it and all like that, but you don't have the right to it. Right now, they can put a factory there. They can put, as long as that factory does not have an adverse impact of noise, lights, glare, vibration, fumes, odors, obstruction of air, light, and litter, they could put a factory there of right. And that factory could be, you know, a quiet factory, but it's going to have shifts, and those shift people are going to, you know, pour out versus, as we learned on the previous housing project, housing people come and go, you know, at sort of different times and places and so on. So I'm not as concerned about that. In terms of I think people saying, well, nobody wants to live in an area with apartments mixed in with them and all like that. I live in University Hill, and we have, I look out across the street from me is an apartment complex owned by the governor. Well, the governor and his wife. But we have apartments all around us, but we also have single-family houses, many of which are very well-maintained and very valuable properties that have been sold for in the upper six figures, not mine, not my house, but others. So I think you have a lot of different things going on here. In terms of the schools and traffic, we've gotten letters about traffic on Kilbourne Road and Brennan and that. I mean, I think that's beyond our purview. And in terms of the schools, I mean, that's the Department of Education is going to figure it out. They're going to redistrict if they have to. They'll do what they have to do to make sure that there's enough schooling, there's enough schools there. So I think that in terms of the things for our purview, I think that it'd be really nice. It's a shame that they didn't get a chance to meet with the Brandon Terrace, Cedar Acres people ahead of time, Cedar Terrace, whatever that is. It's Brandon Acres, Cedar Terrace neighborhood ahead of time. But it does seem for the most part that this is it's the lowest, a pretty low impact use compared to what they can put there of right without coming to us at all. They can, you know, Kirkman could put a factory there.
Celia?
I think we're kind of on the same page. Within that MOU, I think that was a great thing to sort of think about, is because on that site plan, there was an office building. There was a convention center, you know, crammed up against that neighborhood. And so from a density standpoint, from a use standpoint, because the use is what we're looking at today, I feel like that is compatible. It's residential. It's, you know, there's a certain sort of feel to that. I definitely think the neighborhood, you know, it's in their best interest to see this project through other boards that, you know, are going to address their specific concerns more closely. But from our standpoint, again, the use multifamily at the sort of scale and appearance that I think that this is going to go for, it doesn't feel out of place for this particular site, again, because you're at a major intersection. It's just...
Davis, what you thinking?
I agree with what Catherine was saying. You know, you move into a neighborhood and there's a bunch of forest next to it. It's really nice to have and to look at, but you don't have any right to use that as somebody who doesn't own it unless you're given permission from the owner. And, you know, I would just hope that these 2 or 3 buildings that do back up to the neighborhood, that there would be some work done to ensure a buffer. So from, you know, your yards in that neighborhood, you would still get to see, for the most part, greenery and trees. But I agree with what everybody else is saying, is that this is probably the best use of what all could possibly go here, so.
Gerard, you want to say something?
No. I'm pretty good. I mean, I just think, I'm just thinking about as far as what our role is, you know, whether or not there's trees there or, you know, that's kind of out of our purview. Our purview is what's the special exception says that we can do as far as moving forward on this project or any project. And just based on the information that we have here today, 6 and 11 just are seeming to stand out to me. And I think if 6 and 11 are standing out, and we have the developer saying, hey, we want to work with the neighborhood, then why not allow them more time to do that? Because I think this is a great project too. And then maybe come back with whatever they think, the design, you know, whatever they need to do to work with the neighborhood to fix those issues. But I do think a multifamily could work here, but I just think they got some design issues they need to discuss with the neighborhood.
I think they're going to have to work with the neighborhood because
Yeah.
this does, if it does go through, I guarantee that neighborhood's going to come out for sure.
Coleman, Kings
Yeah,
Grant,
the
for
neighborhood's
sure.
gonna come out for the planning
You better
commission.
believe it.
They're going to come out for the site plan. But I do think in terms
Yeah.
of
Go ahead.
of the orientation and spacing of the buildings and that, I mean, I'm not sure, it doesn't look overly dense to me. It looks pretty light.
Well, we don't really even have
crammed
plans
maximally
yet.
in, you know.
We don't even really have plans yet to really
Yeah.
tell. All we have is this drawing.
Yeah, yeah.
Erica?
Erica? Or Hope?
Yeah, so I was just going to say that, or just remind you that staff will be reviewing some of those things like buffers, landscaping, and we do have a form and design section in our ordinance now. So those things will be reviewed prior to Planning Commission
Okay, that's great.
and neighborhood compatibility as well.
But you'll be reviewing that.
Okay.
But I don't think it's fair to ask the developer to come back next time. Again, we've already done this,
Yeah.
on a previous project,
I
and
think
it
we-
ends up,
yeah.
nothing else, making it a very long night. But
Yeah.
That's not relevant to us.
Agreed. So with that, would anyone like to make a motion? If not, I will.
Go ahead.
Want to? I'm going to make a motion that we approve the special exception to permit a multifamily use within the OI district, subject to staff comments. Yeah, just subject to staff comments.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
All right, motion approves. Thank you.
Right, we have one other item on the agenda, and that's the elections from last time.
Oh.
Yeah. Election of vice chair, but John, did you
Yeah, I'd like to remove my name.
remove?
You want to remove your name from consideration?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So Catherine Finner is our new vice chair.
All right.
You have to dismiss us.
Hard fought battle there.
Yeah, make a move to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, adjourned.